smell.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. You are listening to RED-C Catholic Radio, KEDC 88.5 FM in the Brazos Valley, KYAR 98.3 FM in Central Texas, and KINF 107.9 FM in Palestine. Remember, you can always call us at 85 Love Red C. That is 855-683-7332. Okay, well, it is a Wednesday morning here in Bryan College Station, coming to you from the studios right across the street from St. Mary's new church. We are always excited to be here on the Roundup radio show because we get to talk about a lot of exciting things, different things. I get to be with you the second Wednesday of every month, and it is just such a joy. It is something that I do with humility and with love of God and of anything that we can do to bring ourselves, of course, but everybody listening closer to God. So I remind you that my name is Maria Sotolongo, and I work at St. Joseph Catholic School here in Bryan College Station. I am the development director, and I also am the admissions director. So it's always a joy to bring new people into our Catholic school. You know, you can always find us online if you have any interest to join the Catholic education. And somebody that knows a lot about that, our guest this morning, Miss Patty Blaszak. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning, Maria.
It's such a fun thing that I get to also invite people to come and talk to me, friends that I know sometimes, like yourself. And Patty Blaszak, you are well known in the Bryan College Station community for many reasons, for your work at St. Joseph Catholic School that you did many years ago, also as a business owner of the Tilted Pint, a fantastic neighborhood pub, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Patty got her BA in English secondary education with minors in communication and theater at UW-Platteville, and that is the University of Wisconsin in Platteville. And Patty got her master's in mass communication from Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches. So it is such a treat to talk to you today, Patty. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to be here. I'm honored to be here.
Well, I was talking to you earlier, this is just a conversation, and we've had many, you and I, my friend. Yes. I've known you only for about a year.
Oh, you're easy to get to know.
Well, likewise. We met in the conference room, I think, of St. Joe's Catholic School. Maybe that was the first time that we talked.
Somewhere on campus, anyway.
Somewhere on campus. And it's always such a joy to hear more and more about who you are. Some of the highlights that I want to talk about today is that life highlights. Sometimes they are in the trenches of motherhood or in the woes of, nighttime. Something has happened and we're unhappy at night or very happy at night, but just life highlights. We're going to discuss that. What lessons you have learned that have served you most in your life. I see you as such a strong, powerful force behind the scenes in our community, but you're also at the forefront in many ways, always open to volunteer, to help, to pray, to be a sister of Christ with not just me, but many other people. You're a member of Regnum Christi. I love that amazing group, and I want to talk more about that. So let's get started.
Okay.
If somebody comes to you, the typical conversation at a dinner or, again, wherever you might be that you meet someone, how do you introduce yourself, Patty? What do you say about yourself?
Well, often the question is, so what do you do?
Yes.
And that question usually leaves me with a deer in the headlights, kind of like, and especially when I was a stay-at-home mom,
yes.
And I would say, so that I'd be sure to slip in that, I do have an education. I'm just,
yes.
And whatever. But if someone right now in this stage of my life asks me, tell me about yourself, I say, well, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a member of St. Joseph Catholic Church.
Yes.
I'm just living my life, working, bartending,
yes.
I wear lots of different hats like everybody does. So
that is so cool though. Yeah. Not everybody gets to say bartending though. I mean, some people say mom and grandma and wife, but bartender. Okay. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. I believe that sometimes we are really shaped by our childhood or by our, I have a daughter that is in high school, and I just really believe that by the time you're in high school, you have been shaped in so many different ways. How were you shaped at those beginning years of your life, whether it was very young or throughout high school, in ways that have continued to affect you or make you who you are today?
Well, like most people, I was shaped very much so by my mother and my father. My mother was a lifelong Catholic. She spent 4 years in the convent thinking she wanted to be a nun. She left.
Oh, wow.
She left home in 1945.
Okay.
Took the train to Minnesota out of Wisconsin, and really didn't come back until after her freshman year of college. So, she was a very strong Catholic, but she kept everything held to the chest. But she was a very warm and welcoming person. My dad was a professor of agriculture. Grew up, he's a convert to the faith, but very, committed to living the life with my mother and raising us Catholic. But I think one of the main things I learned from my parents was the gift of hospitality. My parents loved to entertain, and we always seemed to have somebody extra living at our house.
I love it.
We had like from the time I was maybe in kindergarten on up through high school, we had other people staying with us. I had 2 foster sisters, but also a variety of like my dad's students that didn't have a place to live. We had a guy, he was a master's student, one of my dad's students that was from Australia that lived with us for a year, and that was fun.
Nice.
Different cousins that wanted to go to UW-Platteville, but it was expensive, so they stayed in the extra room at our house.
Okay.
My cousin John slept in the top bunk above my brother Sean, just different. And so it was, people were in and out of our house all the time. My dad was the advisor to the Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity, the ag fraternity.
Sure.
So we hosted a lot of events at our home we fed a lot of ag students basically. And so just people, and my mom was very involved in the pro-life movement as well.
Sure.
Before Roe versus Wade became legal, became the law of the land in 1973. Before 1973.
She was already involved in
She was
that.
already involved, yeah. She was very concerned that this was going to become the law. Our front closet was loaded with pamphlets and information about abortion and what it was. So at, the tender age of like 7 or 8, I saw images of aborted babies, and just, it touched my heart. And so it armed me later for
where we are today. And what you've done also as a volunteer and as a spokesperson in a way.
Yeah, it gave me a heart for the pro-life movement, not only for, we did shelter some unwed mothers, and my mom opened the first pregnancy help center in my hometown.
Okay.
And she was also one of the founders of Wisconsin Right to Life. So, but later in life, some of the things that I went through, the lessons that I learned from her rang true and helped me through some situations that I really needed that. So, very hospitable parents, very loving parents. I never felt like I was never, I always thought, well, I'm such a troublemaker. When's my mom? When are they going to give up on me? And they never did.
They didn't. No, amen. I really just love that, the gift of hospitality and how that has shaped you in who you are today, and all those great lessons learned from your parents. If we talk about the art of volunteering or giving back to the community, I, Patty, really believe that you get an award, my friend.
No.
I really do think so. How would you talk about that, becoming a volunteer or giving back to the community in the way that, Jesus served and asked us to serve and serve each other and love one another? How do you bring that into your life?
Well, it's been an evolution or a process, because I think you have to follow your passions, and that includes in volunteering. So, because you're not going to stick with it if it's something that doesn't feed you also, but that can't be, for me, that can't be the driving motivation.
Okay.
Because you hear a lot of people say, well, I get more out of it than they do. Well, okay, that's good. But that shouldn't be the goal, that I'm going to receive something from helping somebody else.
Right, not doing it to feel good for yourself.
Yes.
I see, yes.
And so that purity of intention. So sometimes, there have been times in my life when I volunteered for things and it was way too much for me to handle with my family, but somebody asked me to do it and I was so honored that I did it because of my vanity.
Yes,
or for my, oh gosh, they want me? Oh, well, then I must be really something special, so I need to do this.
Yes.
So that, and that's not, and it never never pans out right,
the intention.
Because the intention. So go into things with intention, especially, we all live very busy lives. So, your mission field is also at home. I remember being very overtaxed and volunteering a lot, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was getting babysitters to take care of the kids so that I could go volunteer.
Yes.
And my husband looked at me and he said, one day, he said, your mission is right here at home. Your children, our children are your first volunteer, if you will. Like, that was a wake-up call for me. It's like, I need to take care at home first because I'm preparing souls at home too.
Right. And we do often forget that because we are so bogged down, like you say, with our own children that we want to look outside of our home to do that in a way. I know I relate to that in a huge way of like making myself feel better by going to volunteer at the Lighthouse of the Blind or something, or go feed the hungry.
Yeah.
I feel better, but then my kids are at home without food. Not because we can't give them food, but because I wasn't
I'm too
there.
busy. Yeah.
And so that is a wonderful point. And then finding something that you are called to do and not spreading yourself thin either. That volunteering is a beautiful thing. But, then going into talking about Regnum Christi specifically, first I want you to explain how you're involved with Regnum Christi, what it is, and then we'll kind of circle back to the whole volunteering and feeling called to do something. So what is Regnum Christi?
Okay, Regnum Christi, the reign of Christ is what it translates to, and it's a lay movement in the church. There's several lay movements. There's the Focolare. I have some very dear friends that are involved in that. Of course, I can't call to mind any other ones, but I know there's a lot of
others.
There's a lot of lay movements in the church. In this one, it's we're the church militant, that we're to go out and live our faith in an active way. But this is also contemplative because there are certain commitments and formation that go along with it. And I was introduced to the movement in 2004 by my dear friend Meredith Olson. She just invited me, and I love Meredith so much. I said, this must be something that I need.
Yes.
And it came at a time of great sorrow in my life. I had just lost my brother to cancer, and my one of my very best friends and co-worker and in the pro-life movement, Becky Cervix, she died of breast cancer. So they died within months of each other. And so it was a really rough time in my life, and I was feeling kind of down. And so she called and invited me, and I started learning more. And I went to a silent retreat, kind of kicking and screaming, like, I can't be silent for 4 days. Are you kidding me? By the second day, I was like, I'm so glad I don't have to talk to anybody.
I get it, yes.
But what Regnum Christi has done for me is formed me into a more, into a disciple and someone who has formed habit of prayer. And there's a commitment. There are certain commitments like daily mass, at least once daily mass, not going every day, but some people do.
Yeah,
but at least once a week. That would never have occurred to me before that. But why do people go to mass during the week? We go on Sunday. That's enough. Regular confession, a habit of daily prayer, certain times of the day, and so I don't care where I am or what I'm doing.
Yes.
That is very important to me. And so these things that Regnum Christi has done for me, I'm very grateful for.
Right.
Because I don't know that I would have that habit. Of I get up in the morning, I say my daily offering, I read a little scripture. I'm a journaler.
Yes.
And we try to put, we talk about maybe a case. We do like a weekly case study. Somebody will bring a news article that shows somebody showing a virtue.
Okay.
And then we try to do something, look around our community. So maybe they volunteered, or maybe they showed up with a meal for a family that needed it. So we'll find somebody who has a need, and we try our best to fulfill it. Yeah, and so it's a very concrete way. But the other thing that I really like about it is spiritual direction. Everyone has a spiritual director. That has been a godsend to me. If you don't have a spiritual director, I highly recommend finding one.
Sure.
We have several in the community that are trained.
Okay.
And they go through a certification process to be a spiritual director and approved by the church.
Yeah. And, just to stop you there for a second, I, being a Catholic my entire life, I didn't even know about spiritual direction until I was in my 30s, almost 40s. And I just couldn't believe what a gift that was that we had readily available. Yeah. But a lot of people don't know about it or didn't, or I can't assume. Yeah. I don't know the numbers or data, but I know I didn't. And a lot of my friends that I would then talk to about it, they were like, "You're doing what? Spiritual, what?"
Yeah, so, I'd never heard of it either. And
so how do you describe that for those that might not be aware that is something that we can do?
Well, it's working one-on-one with a trained person. Once a month, I meet with, I'll just tell you my experience,
sure.
that different things that I'm struggling with. You go into confession and you confess a sin, and then they say, okay, try to be better. And then, do your penance, and it's a beautiful thing. But with the spiritual director, you can sit down and go through that and kind of, you have more time. They can't give you absolution, obviously, but they can guide you through, let's look at why you're doing this, or let's look at, so you explore more the things that you're struggling with. And
I think that it is kind of like you have a personal trainer at the gym. Yeah. This in a way is that for your spiritual, for your soul, for your relationship with God, and for your walk with Jesus. So it is just, I do believe it's life-changing, and that it is a beautiful thing that is offered in the Regnum Christi world, and for all of us.
Yeah,
yes.
A lot of the trained spiritual directors here in town that are through the Regnum Christi movement see women that are not in Regnum Christi. Yeah,
and I also love that you guys have regular gatherings, and that support is huge. Not just the friendship, which is just fantastic, but also the prayer, the prayer requests, and the ability to just really again be there for each other is wonderful.
Well, I know it's probably overused, but sisters in Christ. I growing up without sisters, I was like, I have sisters now, and
then you have all boys.
Yes,
right?
Yeah. 3 older brothers, 3 sons, 4 grandsons, finally a granddaughter. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, so just that sisterhood,
the sisters in Christ. Yes.
and the we also focus a lot on the program of life, which I'd never heard of before, and it's where you look at the 3 primary sins: pride, vanity, and sensuality. And which one do you struggle with most? And, say vanity, then the opposite virtue, or pride, the opposite virtue, sensuality, the opposite virtue. How can you try and get rid of that sin and live out the opposite virtue?
Nice.
And
I'm taking notes over here, Patty. I'm like, wait a minute.
You walk through the various parts of your life, and where this, and everyone has a little bit of all of them, but usually one is prominent. So
yes, that's fantastic. So if people want to find out more about Regnum Christi, what do you recommend?
Well, they can reach out to Becky Kramer is our territorial director.
Okay.
I think that's what her title is.
Yeah.
But section director, actually.
And we can also have the information on RED-C Radio's website and so forth. But yes, that is just, I can't stress enough how fantastic that is to have that group. And so then circling back to the whole volunteering and then being invited to join it and then doing it or not doing it. So I was invited to do something with Regnum Christi, maybe like 8 years ago in Houston. And I took it, I will confess right here live on the radio with you, Patty, thank you, that I took that first invitation for perhaps the wrong reasons because of vanity and, what? You want me to MC your event? Well, that's so great. I feel so important, you know? And so I had friends that were in Regnum Christi in Houston, so they recommended that I go, and I went and I did this MCing. And it is funny, though, how God does bring us where he wants us to be. Sometimes we act as humans for the wrong reasons, but then it has ended up being just one of the greatest gifts. And I've been involved in different ways as well. I went to a silent retreat, and me, Patty, you know me, I talk so much. My own husband was like, "Oh, you're not going to make it. There's no way you're going to make it. Do they have penalties, or do they make you pay if you talk?" And so again, I just can't say enough, if whether it's Regnum Christi or any other group, that as women, as sisters, as men and as brothers, that we have some sort of faith formation. And seeing it at our school, at St. Joseph's, how important that is, that yes, we have that at school, at home with our parents, but having it at school as children and then having it elsewhere as adults, men and women, is so life-giving for our spirits, for our soul, and for our walk with Jesus. So now turning to hearing God's voice, and this is just one of my favorite topics that, not everybody discusses maybe in this way, but if I were to ask you, give me some examples, Patty, of when you have heard unequivocally, you have heard God's voice and what you did and how that has changed you.
Well, there are some times when I've heard God's voice and I've turned away from it. And I have one specific memory of that when I was in high school. And I was struggling. I went to Catholic school through 8th grade.
Okay.
And then we didn't have a Catholic high school. So I went into the high school and I didn't transition all that well. I was struggling to make friends and so on. But the party crowd welcomed me with open arms. So I remember having this conversation with God saying, God, I know that you are calling me not to go party.
Yeah.
But I know it's wrong and I'm going to make it right later. But now this is what I need to do right now. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead
and do this.
Yeah. And then I will come back to you later.
Yep.
Thank you, Jesus, for preserving my life, that I didn't get in a car accident, that I didn't, while in that state of actively pushing God out. I never really denied his presence, or I never quit going to church, but I just felt like this is what I have to do for right now, just to survive through high school.
Yeah.
Then I'll be okay.
Yes.
Well, what a dumb thing that was.
Hey, you're not alone. Yeah. You're not alone, Patty.
But when another particular instance, as a grown woman and a mother, when I came to my senses, and my brother he had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and they didn't know how far along. They didn't know what the staging was yet, and they were going to go in and do some surgery and maybe take out part of his pancreas.
Okay.
And this was happening in Atlanta. We're here in Texas praying for him. Our mother had died. Let's see, she died in 91.
Okay.
I was 27 years old. My brother Mike's 4 years older than me. And this was like in 2003 when he's having this surgery. And I remember walking out of our bedroom, and our laundry basket was there, and I saw this image of Our Lady with her arms outstretched and her palms out. You know how there's a statue in the Adoration Chapel that has that position. And I saw her, and the words that I heard were kind of my mother's words also. And that was, I'm waiting for my boy to come home. So I knew right then and there he wasn't going to survive this. That reality just flooded me. So, I mean, that was tough, but I knew that was the message. And it wasn't maybe, of course it was God,
yes,
through our Blessed Mother and through the assurance that our own physical, earthly mother was in heaven praying for him. So, it was going to be okay, even if he didn't survive, that he was going to be in heaven eventually. We still pray for his soul, of course.
That's beautiful. But, tough, but so beautiful. Yes.
Yeah. And as a young, if you dial back about 10 years before that, I was in my early 30s, and I had 2 kids at the time. I had invited a bunch of people for Thanksgiving dinner because that's what we did. We picked up strays that lived in town that didn't have any family, and we're going to have this big Thanksgiving dinner.
Hospitality.
Yes, and I was getting ready for this, but I was feeling really overwhelmed. And I remember going into my bedroom, and I knelt down on the floor, which I'd never done before. And I just cried out to God, "I can't do this. I need you. I need you." And I'm like, where's this coming from? But I think that teenager that said, I'll call on you later. There it was. It's like, okay, I'm ready to bring you back in. I mean, I never stopped going to Mass, but it was a Sunday only, I wasn't living my faith that much,
Right, just checking the boxes.
Checking the boxes, yeah. So that realization that I can't do this on my own. I need you.
Oh.
It's very palpable.
Oh, Patty, thank you so much for sharing those stories. That's so powerful. And that you were present, though, to all of that. And that you even recognize, I didn't listen to that first, the teenage type of, I hear you, I see you, God, but hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that's very typical, So if there are any teenagers or high schoolers or college students listening right now, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say that I understand that it's tough and that, everyone wants to be included. Everyone wants to belong. Mm-hmm. But in the end, those belongings, if they don't have if you've been willing to give up this in order to belong to that, that's not going to last. Mm-hmm. It may, but what you can bring to it with God is so much more beautiful than without. So, hang tough. And because I always admired the people secretly that didn't, that
take part of that.
Yeah. And that went a different way. And I was always kind of jealous that I didn't have the courage to do that. Mm-hmm. And so knowing that somebody may actually want what you have, if you stick with God and walk that path instead, maybe I think that would have given me a little more courage at the time. But
right. It's tough. Hey, and we all do have our own journeys, our own paths. But thank you so much for sharing that. And so now what if we turn to the tilted pint?
Oh.
And how did that start, Patty? I don't even know. So what is the tilted pint? Let's, again, we're talking to Patty Blaszak for about another 15 minutes. What a joy it has been. And if we were to then talk about that for folks that might not live here in Bryan College Station, what is the tilted pint?
The tilted pint is a neighborhood pub. And that's what it's designed to do. We were hoping we had Cheers in our this TV show Cheers in our mind, so that when a regular comes in, everyone knows your name. And that's kind of turned out to be true. That we have a lot of people regulars that everyone they know what you want and what your name is, and we have my husband worked for Suddenlink for a number of years. It was Cable Time, then Cox Media. He was in the advertising side of it, in the operations and advertising. And there were, he and two other guys, they were doing you're going to retire now. Because they'd been, Suddenlink was bought out by Altice, and then they were going to make you retire.
Yeah.
And so he and his friend Jason Arsenault, we've known Jason since 92 or 93. I don't remember.
Okay.
But
a good while.
Yeah, a good while. And so wow, maybe we should go ahead and open that pub that we'd been talking about for just kind of jokingly for years. And so he and the third partner, Kelly Enright, they started, who also worked for them, started visiting and talking about it. And in the meantime, Jason went ahead and took the retirement. Kelly also left, but they kept calling Jeff out to New York to meet with the team out there and kind of give them a brain dump on what do you know? And then they're like, okay, we want you to stay on. We want you to stay on, which ended up with us with an apartment in Queens and all of that. So we are going back and forth to New York while they're planning and devising how to open up this pub. It was supposed to open in the fall of 2019, but we missed the window, and we opened on the great day of January. I think it was like January 20th of 2020. So, and then we closed in March of 2020.
Oh, because of COVID.
Because of COVID. But people were so gracious, because then we kind of pivoted and did takeout. And I tell you, the Catholic community really helped us out with, we have really good fish and chips. And so it was Lent. And so people came and bought fish and chips and kind of carried us through. And we opened back up in the fall of 2020. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So Jeff and I are not, Jeff has another job now, and but it's still in that same industry, and so he's got a full-time job.
Okay.
And I do the payroll, and we do bartending, catering, and Jeff does the books. So
That's awesome.
we're not on site.
Right,
but,
right. But I mean, that's
and
also...
we do the trivia too.
Oh, there you go. I mean, that goes back to the whole gift of hospitality, Patty. I mean, how amazing that here, what you were saying about your own childhood, your own formation as a daughter that you were in your family. Here you now are translating it, also using those gifts that were poured into you from a very young age. So that's a wonderful thing to kind of see. What would you say then to somebody that's wanting to start a business and just has been a dream or a thought, but they always keep postponing it? What would you say?
Well, I'd say make sure you do your homework and make sure you have a very solid business plan and any of the contingencies that could happen. I mean, I think the guys did a really good job. They spent almost 2 years just working on their business plan and getting the financing and so on. And then, don't give up because it's a commitment to own your own business. You're never done. You don't clock out. It's always in front of you.
24/7.
Yeah. So.
No, I mean, see, you've done so much. And this lady right here in front of me, ladies and gentlemen, Patty Blaszak, tells me I don't really have a career. I don't think of myself as having a career. Look at all you've done, Patty. But I get it. I get it because we don't maybe define ourselves as that, like maybe a wonderful doctor or lawyer or somebody else might have that title and that's what they do forever. We sometimes wear many hats. And so I would like to transition into talking about what motivates you, what helps you then to be who you are. You brought something with you that you shared. What is that?
This is the Diary of St. Faustina.
The actual book that you brought with you. That's fantastic.
It's highly earmarked and written in and so on, but she's become one of my best friends. And I think, you want to know what I learned from her?
Yes.
Okay.
What have you learned?
Well, this book was gifted to me by my oldest son, Zachary, and I took 2 years to even pick it up because
it was sitting there.
Yeah, it's very big, and I'm like, God, I don't read big books. So, but I started reading it about the time that we went to Rome for the canonization of John Paul II and John the 23rd, and I was having these weird and if you don't know Faustina, she's the Secretary of Mercy, and she's the one that God revealed the Divine Mercy chaplet too. And she suffered terribly. She had tuberculosis and was in a lot of pain most of her, and the other sisters didn't understand. So she talks a lot about silent suffering, suffering in silence and offering it up. And we Catholics who hear about offering it up, what does that mean? But she, in her writings, really taught me what that meant. And so about the time that I was introduced to her was about the time I was having all these strange symptoms, and I was like, what is going on with my body? And I went to several different doctors before just sitting down with my general practitioner, Dr. Anna Damian, and saying, look, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. What's going on? Yeah. And she ordered an MRI of my brain, and I have MS. And so, there's, on the outside, you don't see anything, but internally, there's a lot going on. There's, some pain and some strange symptoms and just things that are really hard to describe to people. And so the importance of silence and just, I want to talk to someone about it. No, you don't have to talk to someone. You talk to God about that. And so he's the one that really understands. He's the divine physician. And, he has everything that you need. Yes. So you don't have to pour out your heart to anyone else about that. You pour it out to him, and he will use whatever suffering that you take to him and pour it out on to those who need it, whether that be me or somebody else.
Amen.
So I love her.
Oh, and see how you were gifted this book. I mean, that is not a coincidence.
No, it is
right?
not.
It is such a beautiful God incidence that he is equipping you and giving you what you need during this time. Yes. The exact time of this journey with your health. Yeah. So that's
and I love
powerful.
that it came from one of my sons.
Yes. And that it was just sitting there, Patty.
Yes.
And for the right time.
Yeah. Why did I pick it up at that time?
Yes.
It was the Holy Spirit.
You make me, all emotional, Patty. God bless you, my friend. That's really tough. we'll be praying for you. And thank you for sharing that. And again, how you just continue to give yourself to God, and you don't give up, and you don't complain, and you don't outwardly, make yourself a victim. So that's my friend, a beautiful witness to that, a saintly life,
Well, that's why I think it's so important for all of us, excuse me, to read the lives of the saints.
Yes.
Because,
they show us.
Yeah, they're such a good example. And I'm like, I'm not even a tenth of that, but, or 1/100th of that.
Right.
But, there's a lot to learn from. I love reading about the saints.
I know. I mean, yesterday was the feast day of Saint Benedict, and he's one of my favorite, right? And my 9-year-old son also really has this affinity, and, he's his friend. And so we were talking a lot about that, last night about saint, and how maybe other faiths don't understand the life of saints or what saints are. But I do too, Patty. I fully believe they are given to us by God's, glory to imitate or to befriend.
Yeah.
And that they are there right when we most need their stories to continue to strengthen us. So in this brief time that we have left, what saying, share some advice or share some wisdom, motherhood, marriage, juggling it all. And now, a tough diagnosis to go through and hear the words of what you just shared. But what would you say, again, life lessons or any nuggets of just inspiration that you would have to share with us?
Well, I think hearing the phrase, everything in its season, I guess probably in my 40s before I heard that, but I really want to do this, but now is not the right season. I'm in a different season of life, but I will be there someday, or I've already been there. So maybe I need to try something different. So recognizing your state in life. And that's another Regnum Christi thing is doing God's will within your state of life. So don't, I can't say, well, I wish that I was 26 and had all this energy and no children yet.
Yeah.
That's not where I am.
It's
so,
not your state, yes.
So don't struggle under, being in the wrong state of life or season of life. It will come. If it's meant to, it will come. And looking at things through, the purity of intention. Why am I doing this? And just pushing through when you're tired, when you're lonely. Life has a lot of lonely moments, and not, I spend a lot of time seeking that right person to talk to on the phone to give me consolation.
Yeah.
That doesn't, that's momentary. Go to prayer, and that doesn't have to be, as a busy young mom, doesn't have to be sitting in your chair saying, "No, children, you go away because mom is praying right now." Yes. Looking at your children as your prayers,
Yes.
But yeah, just what, and I have a lot of friends who are taking care of elderly parents.
Exactly.
So, and God is in those moments as well. And even when not, like in the middle of the night when you're stressed out and you can't sleep and you finally, get a, maybe, I don't know if this happens to you, but like you've been struggling for 2 hours in the middle of the night, and then just before the alarm goes off is when you fall asleep.
Yes.
Yeah. And so then you think, that's, and they say, I wasted that time. I forgot to offer it up. It's okay.
Yes.
God, He lives out of space and time. You can still offer that up and say, God, I hope you can use that for something. And I've written, I don't know how many times in my journal, Lord, I totally forgot to offer that up last night. But, I'm writing it right now. From this time forward, if I forget, please accept it.
You're right. There is no wrong time to make it right with the Lord.
And I do think we need to make some time for humor and to laugh and not take ourselves so seriously.
Yeah. And a friend told me once about, hey, if you don't feel like praying, because sometimes it's just like, I'm so hurt, or, there's a tragedy that's taken place in your life, and you just, you don't walk away from the Lord, right? You don't walk away from your faith, that you just don't even have the strength to pray. Right. And then I had a friend say that to me, just in the right time after I'd lost my dad and all of that is wonderful because God knows you. God sees you. God knew you before he created you. So it is a wonderful reminder of just, hey, you can always make it up. You can always offer it up. Yeah. So what's next for Patty Blaszak? What's next for you, my friend? What are you up to?
Well, I'm looking forward to doing more at the school this year through the Catholic Mission Committee at the school board at school. Traveling some more. Jeff's job is opening up to more travel. So going to be traveling some more with him, taking care of grandbabies.
Hey, that's a full-time job.
Yeah. Just, wherever God leads me to be, I guess is where I'm going to be.
That's beautiful.
That's yet to be revealed, I guess.
Yeah, but you have such a wonderful family and support group and habits and formation, Patty, that you really are just a gift to all of us that know you. And really, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story because I
think you are a gift to our community. So,
you're very sweet.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much. Hey, we are reflections of that God's glory, I do believe. And we were just saying, hey, when you get out of your way and let God come in, anything is possible. So
absolutely.
Thank you, Patty, from the bottom of our hearts with all of our love. And we will continue to pray for you, lift you up in prayer.
Thank you.
For all the best.
And you too. And the RED-C Catholic Radio, what a blessing.
Yes.
I've lived here before RED-C and after, and it's much better after.
Amen. Well, we thank you so much. And if you're listening right now, we are going to take a just quick break, and we're going to be back in a few minutes with the last 15 minutes of the Roundup RED-C Catholic Radio show. So stay tuned, grab a cup of coffee, get some water, stretch your legs, say a quick prayer, and come back and join us in just a minute. Again, we just spoke to Patty Blaszak right here on RED-C Catholic Radio. Thank you, Patty, and God bless.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.